So New York City is back in the news for various reasons, but today we're going to be talking about something affecting everyone living there today. Thousands of apartments are sitting empty, despite a desperate housing crisis that's making housing affordability a pipe dream for many. Why are these units vacant when the city is starving for affordable housing? And the answer lies in a controversial 2019 law that reshaped the rental landscape. So buckle up as we unpack the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act and its surprising side effects. New York City is in the grip of a housing crisis. In 2023, the city's vacancy rate hit a record low of 1.4%, meaning that there are barely any apartments available. For context, a healthy vacancy rate is around 5 to 8%. This scarcity drives up prices, making housing affordability a massive challenge for the city. So the median rent in Manhattan is over $4,000 a month. And even in outer boroughs, you're lucky to find a one-bedroom under $2,500. For many New Yorkers, affordable housing, especially rent-stabilized apartments, is the only thing keeping them in the city. But here's the kicker. An estimated 26,000 to 43,000 rent-stabilized apartments are sitting empty. They're locked away from tenants who desperately need them. And why? It all comes back to the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019, or the HSTPA for short. So this was passed on June 14th, 2019. The HSTPA was a game changer for tenant protections in New York, but it was designed to preserve affordable housing by strengthening rent stabilization, which covers about 1 million apartments in the city, roughly half of all the rentals. But before 2019, landlords could deregulate apartments if the rent hit a certain threshold, like $2,774 when a tenant moved out. But they could also raise rents by up to 20% during vacancies and charge market rates after renovations. The HSTPA said no more. It eliminated vacancy decontrol, meaning once an apartment is rent stabilized, it stays that way forever, unless the law is, of course, repealed. It also capped rent increases for renovations at $15,000 spread out over 15 years. And they scrapped the vacancy bonuses as well. But the goal was to keep affordable housing affordable and stop tenants from being priced out. Sounds great, right? Here's where things get messy. HSTPA, while a win for tenants, has created unintended consequences that are worsening the housing crisis. But according to the 2023 Housing and Vacancy Survey, about 26,000 rent-stabilized apartments were vacant but unavailable for rent in 2022, down from 43,000 units in 2021. But some estimates on platforms like X even claim up to 100,000 units are off the market. So why are these apartments collecting dust? It comes down to the economics and landlord incentives, or the lack of. So first, many of these vacant units, especially in older buildings, they need serious repairs. Think collapsing ceilings, busted plumbing, or an ancient electrical system. Before 2019, landlords could renovate, raise the rent significantly, and even deregulate the unit. But now, with a $15,000 cap on renovations, they can only add about $83 to $89 a month to the rent, which doesn't cover the cost of major upgrades. In some cases, rents are so low, like $737 a month for a long-term stabilized unit, the landlords say they're losing money just keeping the building running. With the rising costs for maintenance, taxes, and insurance, many are choosing to leave the units empty rather than sink cash into unprofitable apartments. Now, this brings us to the term you'll hear a lot, which is warehousing. Landlords are reportedly holding apartments vacant, hoping for a change in the law or a chance to combine units into larger market rate apartments. For example, some are applying for demolition permits to bypass rent stabilization entirely. Others are just sitting on vacant units, betting that the political pendulum will swing back in their favor. The Real Estate Board of New York and groups like the Community Housing Improvement Program argue that the HSTPA has made it impossible to maintain affordable housing without losing money. They point to a 2023 study showing 25% of pre-1974 buildings, mostly rent stabilized, are in financial distress. Some landlords have even sold their buildings at a loss, like the Rosedale Management, which offloaded 10 of its 13 properties because repairs were too costly under the new rules. On the flip side, tenant advocates say landlords are crying wolf. They argue that the HSTPA is a lifeline for housing affordability, preventing thousands of apartments from being deregulated and keeping tenants in their homes. Before 2019, about 10,000 units were deregulated each year. Now it's closer to about 5,000. They claim landlords are deliberately keeping units vacant as a pressure tactic to force lawmakers to roll back the law. For tenants, rent stabilization is often the only thing standing between them and eviction in a city where housing crisis is relentless. Advocates say the real issue isn't the law, but the aging housing stock and the landlord's unwillingness to invest in maintenance without sky-high profits. So where does this leave us? Okay, New York's housing crisis is worse than ever, and these empty apartments are a symptom of a deeper problem. While the HSTPA protects tenants, it also tied up thousands of units that could house people in need of affordable housing. But in April 2024, Governor Kathy Hochul signed amendments to the HSTPA, making renovation-related rent increases permanent again, and allowing courts to consider the landlord's cost when judging unreasonable rent hikes. So will this bring more units back online? And it's too early to tell, but it's a step towards balancing tenants' protections with the reality of maintaining older buildings. Meanwhile, the debate rages on, with landlords and tenants at odds over how to solve the housing crisis without sacrificing housing affordability. As we wrap up, one thing is clear. New York City's housing crisis is a tangled mess, and the 2019 rent law has both helped and hurt. It's preserved affordable housing for many, but left thousands of apartments empty, and they're caught in a standoff between landlords and the law. The path forward will require creative solutions to balance tenant rights with the economic realities of maintaining affordable housing. But what do you think? Are you seeing this? Do you live in New York City? Do you live around New York City? What are you seeing right now? Should the law be tweaked, or is it made as intended?